Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is the day that we call Valentine's Day here in the US. Today is February the 14th and the year is 2024. And we are, we're going to be recording video 37 today. Today is 37. Wow. It's amazing how quickly these episodes go by. But anyways, today is it's an interesting day for so much of my life. And I'm going to say the first 40 years of my life. Valentine's Day was had special meaning. It was a day that somebody would either pledge their love to you because it would tell you you were their Valentine. And I grew up, as a young girl, creating little Valentine's cards to share in school with my friends and expressing love that way. And then it turned into the special boy that would be my Valentine, and I'd be heartbroken if I wasn't his Valentine and he had a different Valentine than me. And then, of course, that matured. I use the word matured loosely into adult relationships where we played this conditional game of conditional love. And it was a love about, well, let's see how much you love me. It depends on what you buy me for Valentine's Day. And it just became such a competitive thing. And then, of course, there's the flip side to that. I'm talking about having Valentines. I had Valentines and we were unloving with each other. But there are so many people that just the mere mention of the word Valentine sends them into such sadness and guilt for not having been as how they needed to be. And they lost a Valentine. They got into a divorce, or they don't have a Valentine anymore. Their Valentine passed away. And there's all that guilt for what they should have done to have kept that Valentine. And then, of course, there are those who haven't had a Valentine, a date, a boyfriend, a lover, a girlfriend for years. And they just walking through the grocery store and seeing all the Valentine's flowers sends them into depression because they're alone. So this day that we reserve to have one day out of the whole year that we label as a day for love is really is the quintessential example of the special love that the ego creates that makes a mockery out of love. And when I said, mature with quote unquote, we think that we are adults and we understand love, but we really don't. As a matter of fact, I don't know why the thought came into my mind about 15, 20 minutes ago. Now it makes sense. Because this is so funny, the way that guidance works. So I started thinking about my former husband, which I hardly ever think about him. I normally think about his daughter, who I became very close to. But anyways, Ken popped into my mind. And I was thinking, oh, interesting. Here he just popped into my mind on Valentine's Day. And here's probably the man that during my human incarnation, I loved the most of any man I'd ever loved. And this is special love I'm talking about, where I fell head over heels for this man that appeared to have been head over heels over me. But when he popped into my consciousness, all of a sudden I got this like sometimes the messages that I get are like neon signs. And I thought to myself, well, what was the lesson? What was really the essence of the lesson that I got out of my relationship with Ken? And the neon sign was going, you learned about the cost of conditional love. It was like, whoa, that was such a big lesson, because that's when I was able to have enough awareness. By the time Ken came into my life, I was already doing this work. I was already teaching. I had a center in Georgia, in Atlanta, called the Center for Awareness, and I was teaching my classes. That's where much of the community that has been going on for 15, 20 years started at the Center for Awareness. And I had classes, I had different people who came and spoke and gave courses and taught about energy. We did past life regression groups. I mean, it was an amazing space where so many came to, for the first time, begin to become aware of who they really are. And of course, in the process of becoming self-aware, they were learning that we don't really know what love is about when we are operating with special love. And of course, I met Ken while I was at that center and came and turned my life upside down. But it needed to happen that way because so many lessons. But if all I take away was that it taught me the cost of conditional love, that lesson alone is powerful, because the ego is all about special love. You're special to me, and I will love you if you do blah, 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 blah. Or I will love you if you don't do blah, 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 whatever that is. It's very conditional. You will get all of my attention, all of my love, if you stop doing this thing that you do. If you stop, biting your nails, if you stop picking your nose, if you stop working late, if you stop doing this, or if you start calling me more, if you start bringing me flowers, if you start looking for a job where you make more money, if you start behaving this way, if you start wearing these clothes, if you stop doing that thing, if you start doing this thing, then I'll love you. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be okay. If you buy me the right flowers, do you know how many people have had a total meltdown on Valentine's Day because their lover, their special love, didn't get them the flowers in the color that they wanted? You brought me yellow roses. Don't you know that I love white roses? Don't you know that I love pink instead of red roses? So many people have been devastated because they didn't get the right color roses, or they didn't get the right shaped diamond. It's insane. Absolutely insane, the mockery that the ego has made of love. But that was necessary for us to understand that in the third dimension, in the lower realms, when we allow our lower chakras to run our lives, when we operate from the lower energies, the sex energy, that the egoic sex energy, you love me if you do sex this way, or if you do sex this many times with me. You love me if you do sex with me, period. It's not about an exchange of love. It's about, what can I get? What gratification are we getting from this? So it's really interesting having Ken pop into my mind, because I just absolutely so grateful for that lesson, because that lesson came at a time that it was so important for me to make a decision. Who really is the teacher of love for me? Is the teacher of love my father, the way he treated my mother? That was not loving. But yet that's the example that I had about how men treat women. Was the teacher of love for me my mother? That's how women love? She was not very loving towards my father. She was very conditional. She was very conditional towards us children. If you clean your room, I'll be happy. The message was, you have to do certain things for me to love you. Because if mom didn't, if she wasn't happy and she was upset and angry and mad, love got cut off. We didn't feel her love. So of course we did whatever it took to make mom happy, because we equated a happy mom with a loving mom. And granted, love and happiness go together. But as a child in the third dimension, when we are beginning to solidify who we think we are in the world, where we're solidifying those lower three chakras, we are basing our idea of love based on the ones who are modeling it for us. Moms show us the way women express love. Dads show us the way men express love. And when you think that that's how love is expressed, that becomes the foundation of your adult love. But then you layer, well, how does my teacher love me? Does she give me good grades? Does she pass me or does she fail me? That feels like conditional love, doesn't it? The teacher will be happy with me if I do certain things. Then we learn that from the coaches of our little league games or dance coaches or whatever activities we do. If they like us and pick us to be on the team or give us the part in the play, then we're loved, because that's how mom and dad treated us. They were happy with us if we did certain things, which meant if they're not happy with us because we didn't behave a certain way, then we should feel bad about how we behaved and feel guilt about that. That solidifies these lower chakras, these energies that, well, look right here. Our first chakra is who we show up in the world as. If there's something wrong with me as a boy or as a girl, I'm going to operate with fear. I'm being the bad boy, the bad son, the bad daughter. There's something wrong with me, which, as many of you all know, is my story. When I was born, my dad wanted a son and I came out a girl. So I was already in fear. I was the wrong sex. Thank goodness I wasn't born today, or they would have transitioned me, I'm sure, to become a boy, that a soda a dingling on me so that I could become, a boy, totally against who I really am. But I was afraid of being a girl because being a girl is not what my father wanted. So that messes people up from the get-go, having to perform in a certain way to feel approval for who you are. And then, of course, we go into the second chakra. If we are not taught, and we cannot be taught this by unconscious parents, how to process our emotions, to realize that, if I feel bad, mom, a conscious parent, a conscious father, a conscious mother would say, listen, you're upset right now, but it's not your fault. You're upset because mommy's upset. Let mommy process her stuff. Let daddy process, his stuff. And then we'll process yours. So if my dad came to me and said, the reason you don't feel happy that you're not a girl is because of me. It's my issue. It's not your issue. But they couldn't do that because they were unconscious, meaning they were not conscious of what real love is. They were unconscious to real love because they were operating with their beliefs, hand-me-down beliefs from their parents. So what happens is second chakra gets blocked with guilt and shame. It gets blocked with, I feel bad of who I am. First, I feel fear that I'm not what you want me to be. And then I feel bad for being who I am, meaning that whenever we feel a sense of authenticity, then we feel guilty about it. We feel shame about it. And we do everything we can to overcompensate for that. And then, of course, the third chakra is the chakra of our beliefs. Then I believe that there's something wrong with me. And if I think there's something wrong with me, that I should feel guilt and shame, then my life is always going to be run by fear, because I'm going to be afraid to disappoint anybody, because that activates guilt and shame. I don't want to feel that because nobody taught me as a child how to process my emotions. And they couldn't teach me how to process my emotions because they were not even in touch with their own. They needed me to stop feeling what I was feeling so they wouldn't feel what they were feeling. If you clean your room, I'll be happy. What kind of message is that to send to a child? You should be happy whether I clean my room or not. And in your happy state, you can send me to my room to clean it, or you can tell me, you know what, you're not going to get the dessert, or you're not. That's okay. But don't change your happiness and make yourself unhappy because of what I'm doing, because that just teaches conditional love. You have to behave a certain way so I get to feel good. So when we learn about conditional love at an early age, and we all do in this third dimension of consciousness, in this 3D world, the rest of our lives, is influenced by a totally, completely wrong idea of what love is. So let's get into today's lesson, because you're going to see why this is just so powerful, that all of this is coming to light about Ken and being Valentine's Day and all that good stuff. So we're still in chapter 30 in the text, as always, Course in Miracles. That's the only text that I will ever really go in depth into in any kind of classes. I've done lots of book clubs and studied all kinds of texts, and I'll probably keep doing things like that, because there are so many teachings out there that give us more clarity on specific things. But to really understand the truth of who we are, Course in Miracles is the only teaching that I'll ever go to. So in chapter 30, we're still in section number 5, which is title is The Only Purpose. This is where we have spent time realizing that the only purpose for the 3D world is forgiveness. We have to use this world that we think is real, that we have projected in separation, that we think that there's another person who loves me and is going to bring me flowers because it's Valentine's Day. We have to use this world to forgive ourselves for having forgotten who we are. And as we take the Course in Miracles and we really understand about projection, we have projected out there a mother, a father, a lover, a teacher, a preacher, a government. We have projected beings outside of us, given them power, given them authority. And of course, we projected the church, gave the church authority to tell us who God is. And of course, it put God out there on a cloud somewhere as a father that punishes us. So as we understand who we really are, and it takes a lot of work to get to the point that you are willing to understand the whole game of projection, because once you begin to see that you projected everything out there to show up for you to have an experience, then and only then are you preparing yourself to move to another level, leaving 3rd grade and moving to 4th grade, if you want to look at it that way. So there has to be a spiritual maturity that moves you, not because of the age that you are, which is the way the world operates. We think we're mature because you're older. This is a spiritual maturity that sometimes children are way more spiritually mature than the adults around them. It's a recognition that you're moving away from the world that the ego made, and you're grounding yourself in the truth of who you are, so that you can take your power of being able to project a world that, even though it appears that we're separate, we are projecting from love. What that means is that Course in Miracles is about showing you the 3D world based on fear, based on ego. So, and then it shows you the 5th dimensional world based on love. This is what the Course calls a happy dream. And you have to be grounded in the middle, in the 4th dimension. So we go from 3rd grade to 5th grade. You got to plant yourself in 4th grade, meaning you got 1 foot in the 3D world, 1 foot in the 5D world. You can see what the ego has made, the mockery that the ego has made of love. I can see my relationship with Ken, how ego just totally, completely made a mockery of love. I can see that. I can accept my participation in that. I can see his role in that. Nobody to blame. I am in gratitude that I can see it, that I'm aware of it, because I have a foot in the new world that I want to create. A future partner for me will be a partner where there's no condition for love. It is grounded, and they don't have to come in and make me happy, because happiness is what I've discovered is already in me. I have discovered the love of God. I have discovered that all the things that Christ taught. I and my brother are one. I and my Father are one. I am one with all that is. I treat others how I want to be treated. Instead of manipulating them, because I don't like to be manipulated, I treat in total and complete transparency. So I have to be able to stand firm here and say, that's what I prefer, in order for that experience to be projected and created. Because we are the creators of our reality. We co-created with our parents in the lower dimension. I've grounded myself in the fourth dimension, which is learning about love, understanding what love is, feeling what real love is, so that I can then move into the higher dimension with a mind that is completely clear of lower beliefs, lower bullshit, and operating in the higher knowingness that is what God has taught, what love, not that God has taught, is what love is, that Christ taught us. Jesus taught us what that love is. He was an incarnated being who gave us an example of what one who is in alignment with truth, loves unconditionally, loves as the Father, Mother God loves, what they embody. But humanity wasn't ready to be like Jesus, because who wants to walk around and, and not own anything and be happy? It's so funny. But here Jesus is, he didn't have anything. He didn't have a pot to piss in, as they say in the South. And he was joyful. He didn't need people to change their behavior. He didn't need people to like him. He lived in a perpetual state of unconditional love, even forgiving those who were nailing him to a cross. Forgave them. They didn't know what they were doing because they operated from their lower chakras. He was here showing what high frequency love is all about. They couldn't understand that. They were threatened by that kind of love, a love that does not judge, that doesn't manipulate, that doesn't hold people accountable to expressing love a certain way. And all of the leaders and the Pharisees and the emperors or whatever of that time, they didn't like somebody walking around telling people, God loves you no matter what. When they were teaching, oh no, God's not happy with you unless you pay me taxes, unless you do things a certain way, God's going to punish you because you have to follow my rules for God to be happy with you. So this inverted, crazy system of using the love of God to punish people, that if you want good things to happen to you, you've got to pay your money. You see the conditions here? You've got to pay your taxes. You've got to pay the rulers. You've got to do what they tell you to do. Instead of you having that direct relationship with the Father that Jesus was talking about, well, they had to get rid of somebody who's saying, you don't need the Pharisees, you don't need the rabbis, you don't need these people who tell you that they're in charge. You don't need to follow their rules. They've got all these crazy rules. You only need 2 rules. Love your neighbor as yourself and love God. That's it. If you just do that and treat others with respect and reverence, no conditions, then everybody gets to be happy. Jesus gave us basically the keys to the kingdom, which was the way to create the 5th dimension, the happy dream that Course in Miracles is teaching us all about. But to get to operate in that dimension, we all have to be purified of all the wrong thinking, the misperceptions, the low frequency thinking that we operate from. So here's a simple question for you. If you are in a state of believing that you are your 5th dimensional being, be honest with yourself and check in on Valentine's Day. Did you get upset because somebody didn't call you? Did you get upset because somebody didn't say I love you? Did you get upset because somebody didn't give you a card? Did you get upset because you don't have somebody? If there's any kind of judgment, any kind of discomfort around love, you're not in the 5th dimension. This is the level of honesty that is necessary to help us see what perpetuates the 3rd dimension. We have to feel it to heal it. We've got to be honest where we still have conditional love, because conditional love does not allow you to move into the realm of unconditional love. Conditional love are like weights that hold us down, that keep us anchored in the frequency of the ego. To move beyond that, to rise above that, you cannot be thinking about love in any way, shape, or form where conditions have to be met, where you need to get a card or a call to be happy, where, well, if my child really loved me, they would have called me. That is conditions. Those are third dimensional conditions that we must let go of. So this, I mean, how perfect that we're having this conversation on Valentine's Day. So the last paragraph that we read, paragraph number 6, there was a very powerful statement in there, because God is telling us, well, Jesus is the one channeling, but Jesus is saying in sentence number 4, the gap between your brother and yourself was never there. Basically, there's never been a separation between us and one another, ever. It's never been there. It's all made up by the ego. Sentence 5 says, and what the Son of God knew in creation, he must know again. What that means is when we wake up, when we recognize each other as one, when you love your neighbor as yourself, when you recognize our oneness, you will begin to remember who you really are as God created you, which is a bringer of love. That's all that we are. Bringers of love, expanding the kingdom of heaven, expanding opportunities for love and joy and peace and creativity and co-creation. So until we close that gap between us and others, until we stop seeing others as separate, my dad needed me to be a boy for him to be happy. Until we stop using one another to feel happy, and we recognize that our happiness was given to us in the creation of each and every one of us, and we begin to accept our own joy and stop being so conditional, then we begin to remember who we are from the creation of each and every one of us. So then we go into paragraph 7, the new paragraph for today. And again, this will be lesson 37 if you're following these in my Facebook, where I post these, and I might be too behind. Anyway, so paragraph number 7. When brothers, and of course, this is brothers and sisters, this is for the sake of simplicity, and this was written specifically in Christian terms, so it uses the male pronouns. But when brothers join in purpose, when all of us join in purpose in the world of fear, they stand already at the edge of the real world. When we join together in purpose in the world of fear, we stand already at the edge of the real world. Perhaps we still look back and think that we see an idol that we might want, yet has their path been surely set away from idols toward reality? So I read all of that so that you can see how this fits. When we have joined in purpose, when we have joined together in the purpose of understanding that we are as God created us, where we know that there's no difference between us in terms of how God created us, a whole, perfect, and complete, capable of love, capable of creativity, absolutely able, all of us, to experience a life of pure love and joy and bliss and abundance. When we connect there as what makes us the same, then of course all of the differences, that some will be painters, some will be doctors, some will be will operate in growing food, and some will operate in farming, and some will do medical, be in the healing arts. When we recognize that what we do for the world is going to be different, but we're all made of the same thing, which is pure wholeness, completion. We don't need to be conditional, because what do we need to get from somebody else to experience the truth of who we are? Nothing. Conditional love is going to drop away. So when we begin to join in purpose, we will recognize inside of this world of fear, this world of the ego has created that. that we will stand already at the edge of the real world, meaning we will recognize the world of fear. That's how I got trained and conditioned. But I have a foot at the edge of the world that it says here, the real world. God created the real world. God created the earth. The ego has made the world of fear, overlaid through greed and jealousy and competition and manipulation and condemnation. We have overlaid this layer of darkness, of heaviness on this planet. We've got to take a step into the real world. What would life look like if we all knew that we're all the same? Meaning we were all created perfect, whole, and complete. Well, that is the maturity that I'm talking about, the spiritual maturity that you have to have done enough of the work to help you see the world of the ego, have you put a foot in the real world, in the world of God. Well, the only way to move to the world of God is you have to be neutral. You got to stop judging out there because you have already used the world for the purpose that it has, which was to begin to forgive those who taught you from a place of their own ignorance. I forgive my mom and dad. They taught me about love that was conditional because that's what was taught to them. So I used my journey, my dark night of the soul, to forgive everybody who taught me things that I was operating from as if they were real. And who did I learn those things from? Father, mother, teacher, preacher, government, media, all of those. I've already forgiven all of them. They didn't know what they were doing. Even though it appears to the ego, they knew that they were judging. They knew that they were lying. Well, that they were playing those roles. Yes, they were playing those roles. But I needed them to play those roles to snap me out of my delusion. That began to ground me in the curiosity of what then is real love. And that sent me on a journey to discover what real love is. But I couldn't stand at the edge of the real world, grounding myself in, I know I want something different, so that I could begin to look at the old world and go, I don't want that anymore. That began to give me the contrast. And that contrast, when used with awareness, when used with understanding that we project the world that we don't want, so that we can see what we don't want to experience anymore, so that when you ground yourself in the truth of who you are and you realize how powerful you are, you then can project the world that you do want, that the Course calls a happy dream. How are you going to create what you want unless you know what you don't want? That's the whole purpose of awakening, is you get to see two options and you pick the one that feels in alignment with the truth of who you are. I don't need to play the conditional game anymore. I don't need to play conditional love. Not only is it boring, not interesting, but it doesn't align with who I am anymore. So if I'm going to have a partner, it's going to have to be a match for people who are not playing games. We may not even celebrate Valentine's Day because we don't have to buy into that nonsense. So it has to be somebody who doesn't feel like they've got to give me something or that I've got to give them something for us to feel the love that is there. That's just not going to be a match. Conditions will not be part of it. So as we prepare to shift into this new reality, we're still going to be able to see the world of conditions. That's what this is telling you really clearly. Sentence number 2. Perhaps they still look back and think that they see an idol that they want. Oh, maybe I would like to have a life like so-and-so. Maybe Taylor Swift has the best life ever. Maybe you think that that's an idol that you might still want because you're still not grounded. You don't have 2 feet in the new earth. You've got 1 foot still in the old. Yet has their path been surely set away from idols towards reality. You realize, so you know what? Taylor Swift, she's just an example of the 3D world where we put certain people rise to the top because they're considered talented, they're considered special. So they rise to the top and then they date other special people a Super Bowl player. So then, it appears to be so amazing. But if you look into their hearts, if they're not grounded in truth, they're grounded in lies. Is their relationship shaky because if they don't get all the media attention, then what's wrong with us? Are we not the perfect couple yet? If all eyes are not on us, if all the lights are not shining on us, can you imagine the pressure of having to be an idol to the whole world? Is bad enough having, your own personal idols, your own lover or your own special child or special boss. But when it's on the stage, on the world stage, like somebody like Taylor Swift, and I don't remember her boyfriend's name. I don't follow football. But anyways, we are being taught to look at how we idolize in the 3D world. And some may still have some idols that we have that we need to let go of as we continue this journey. And then it says in sentence number 4, for when they joined their hands, when we together as brothers and sisters join hands in the single purpose of recognizing our oneness, it was Christ's hand that we took, and they will look on him whose hand they hold. Jesus, as a human, was teaching us about what the Christhood is all about. And Jesus, in his acknowledgement of him being one with God, that creates Christ consciousness. The minute you and I recognize that we are all one as brothers and sisters, we're activating Christ consciousness in us. And Christ consciousness means that you're remembering the truth of who we all are. We're all brothers and sisters with Taylor Swift, with the Pharisees, with Hitler, with Mother Teresa. We're all one because we're all of the same energy. So when we can accept that we're all made of the same energy, that's why we're equal. And from that energy that is whole, perfect, and complete, we take on individuation. Each of us appears to be different on the outside and have different talents, because not one of us can be all of it. I can't be the doctor, the lawyer, the teacher, the preacher, the farmer. I can't do all of those roles. So God expresses itself in billions of ways. So we have lots of people who can play all the different roles to give us the experience of that one single expression that God can have, because God is infinite possibilities. God can play bazillions of roles, and that's just on planet Earth. In different galaxies, in different dimensions, God is expressing itself in different ways in all these different planets, these different galaxies, these different universes within the universe. Not one person can be all of that. It wouldn't be possible, because if one person could be all of that, that one person would be God, and there would be no other people. So we've got to get comfortable with the idea that we're each expressions of one tiny aspect of what God can be, but celebrate that each one of us is expressing that aspect. And when we can achieve that level of unconditional love for one another, then we don't have to be jealous about each other. I am so grateful that Taylor Swift is playing the role of a singer, songwriter, blonde, tall, skinny. I don't have to then. I don't have to be the songwriter that writes those songs. I can be me. Somebody else can be a songwriter that is, maybe short and stocky and has dark hair and sings a totally different genre. We watched it on the world stage. There's so many different genres. So when we can love all the different songwriters and all the different actors and all the different politicians and all the different physicians and all the different farmers, because they each grow and do something different, all of those differences create the diversity that makes being a human so rich. Because if I only knew to grow potatoes and I ate potatoes all my whole life, sure, I could mash them, or I could boil them, or I could roast them, and I'd have a variety of potatoes, but that'd be pretty boring if that's all I knew. So I need somebody who will grow the corn, and I need somebody who will grow the collard greens or the broccoli to add variety. So that's what this is saying here. For when we have joined our hands with one another as humans, we begin to love our brothers and sisters for the diversity that they offer. We have then taken Christ's hand, meaning we are now listening to the voice of the Christ within. And they will look on him whose hand they hold. Once I begin to recognize that it is Jesus who has shown me the way, his life is the example that shows me the unconditional love that I want to live by. And what did Jesus teach? That all of us are connected to God. And just as he did, so can we experience the awareness that I and the Father are one. So sentence number 5 says, the face of Christ is looked upon before the Father is remembered. We cannot, this is going to happen for all of humanity. We cannot fully remember God until we understand what Jesus's life is all about. Because Jesus was the first and most clear example of the unconditional love of God expressed in human form as Jesus. Him remembering that is what activated his Christ consciousness. All of us have the ability to activate our awareness that we and the Father are one. And most of us need a teacher, just like I needed a teacher with mom and dad of conditional love. I need a teacher of unconditional love. Just as my mom and my dad taught me how to be a human, a female or a male, Jesus taught me how to be divine. So when we accept that we already have a teacher and we shift, instead of mother, father, teacher, preacher teaching me of the ways to be in the world, I chose Jesus as a teacher of how to be my divine self, because in the 5th dimension, we can't take immature 3rd dimension people. It's not, the frequencies don't match. To be a 5th dimensional being, you have to operate from high frequency, meaning you've got to know that you're divine. So you got to know that you're the creator of your reality. You've got to acknowledge how powerful you are. You misused your power. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was a misuse of power that created the 3rd dimension, conditional love. We misused love, used it wrongly to attack each other, to hold each other accountable, to guilt each other, to give pleasure to one another when one didn't want it. We misused our human expression for selfish means. That's what service to self is all about. The ego is selfish. It's greedy. It's all about me. You can't take that into the 5th dimension. You can't go to the 5th dimension. Okay, here I am. I want everything to be wonderful for me. It's not that way. You've got to let go of the selfishness, the greed, the jealousy. Recognize that we're all the same. That's why we have opportunities with people in our lives who come and who go, who get sick, who get rich, who lose everything, who go homeless. We have to see all of that so we can stop saying, well, the one that, my rich aunt or uncle or grandfather or husband, oh, I like that one. Oh, but they lost it all. No, I don't like that one anymore. We can't do that and move to the 5th dimension. All of the situations that are happening in our lives are giving us opportunities to see our consciousness. Where do you hold special situations, circumstances as the evidence of you being happy? And then where do the bad situations become the evidence of, oh, now you get to be unhappy. You get to be sad and miserable because somebody doesn't want to be with you anymore. Somebody didn't send you flowers on Valentine's Day. If your peace and your joy is dependent on anything outside, you have idols. You need those things for you to be okay. That's what we're maturing from. You don't need anything to be okay. You're okay because you were created okay. Then it tells us that I'm going to repeat this, the face sentence 5, the face of Christ is looked upon before the Father is remembered, because once we accept, okay, Jesus told us where God is, then we begin the relationship with God within. Sentence 6, for he must be unremembered until his Son has reached beyond forgiveness to the love of God. God is unremembered to us, and people play those roles to help us not remember God. They're called preachers and rabbis, and I forget what you call it in the Islamic tradition. I think they're called imams. Forgive me if I say that incorrectly, if that happens to be your faith. But we have to have religious people tell us that God is outside of us. They play the role to help us not remember God, so we can have a 3D experience. All of these characters play specific roles to help us have the full-on experience of being a third-dimensional being, so we can have the contrast that makes us then want to remember God, come back to the place where we realize, okay, how did I forget God? Well, I forgot God very simply. I had other people teach me about love. So I began to forget God, because God and love are the same thing. So who teaches me about conditional love? Mom and dad and all the other people around me. Who teaches me about unconditional love? Jesus. Oh, let me study his life. Let me see the example that he left. Now I see, he told me I and the Father are one, meaning if he could do it, so can I. I feel that in me, I begin to remember. So the love that I've been looking for outside of me has always been in me. How can that be? Well, because I'm made of God. I'm made of the energy that creates everything. I wouldn't be existing here if I wasn't animated by the energy of God. That's the energy of love. And the Course tells us we are the light of the world, meaning we bring love to the world. That illuminates the way. It shows what love is all about. And when you feel that kind of unconditional love, first for yourself, so you forgive yourself all of your errors, and then you can forgive your brothers and your sisters, your ex-spouses, your all those conditional relationships, and you forgive because you realize, oh my gosh, I had you on the hook for me to be happy. Now I realize I'm happy no matter what. You begin to feel what God is in you. And as you feel what God is in you, you now are the Christ, just as Jesus became the Christ. So here it tells us, for he must be unremembered. God must be unremembered for us to have the 3D experience until his Son has reached beyond forgiveness to the love of God. So we move to the edge of the 3D world. We understand in the fourth dimension. Fourth dimension means that we're doing the work. We're on a bridge. And then we ground ourselves in the world of this real world, which is the fifth dimension. Sentence 7 says, yet is the love of Christ accepted first. We have to accept that we are the bringers of the love of Christ. We've had it in us all along. Where is the best place to hide the truth of who we are but inside of us? So that we could have a 3D experience looking for it outside of us, accumulating stuff to make us feel good, getting the jewelry to make us feel loved, getting the diplomas to make us feel intelligent, getting the promotions to make us feel important, getting the stuff from the outside. So all of this attachment to outside stuff was necessary for us to play the game of being a third dimensional separate ego. We had to have that. It had to happen. Now we see it and we're mature enough to say, been there, done that. It's boring. But if it's still important to you, if the roses are still important to you, then you need more time in the 3D world. You need to have your heart broken a few more times before you go, you know what? I'm done with that. So there's nothing wrong with having your heart broken on Valentine's Day, because that shows that you still have lessons to learn about love. You still are not prepared to accept the love of the Christ that is in you. You're still not mature enough to say, no, I am the bringer of love. And then in accepting that role, you live your life accordingly, sharing your love. One who shares their love. You don't judge people because you know they are just like you. Then they're on the path. They either don't remember or they remember. That's it. That's the only difference that we can have with anybody else when you reach a certain level of spiritual maturity. It's either we're aware or we're not. Either they remember or they don't. That's it. We do not judge by color or money or whatever. That goes away. There's only an awareness, a recognition. They remember love, they extend love. They don't remember love, they're calling for love. That's why the Course in Miracles teaches us that everything is either love expressed or a call for love, period. At that level of spiritual maturity, you're not even a spiritual person. You are just being the love of God, period. Because you've accepted where God is and it's in you. That is Christ consciousness. Then the last sentence here says, and then will come the knowledge that they are one. We cannot experience our oneness with anything. It just makes me so weepy. Recognizing we've all, I was born a bringer of love and light to the planet. My parents didn't remember that, so they made sure that I would forget it so that I could play the role of 3D Laina. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for modeling for me what love is not, so that I could have the 40 years of misery that I did, so that I could support Hallmark and make sure Hallmark made a lot of money from all the cards that I bought trying to buy love, and get love from people and all the stuff that I did to try and validate my worth. How fun was that? I mean, that was a fun role. I have loved playing the role of unconscious Laina. It was quite interesting. Now, I know where love is. I can't hold anybody else responsible for giving it to me. Now, I know that love exists inside of me. I can't be looking for love in all the wrong places, because now that I know where love is, there is absolutely no seeking, searching outside of myself anymore. So when we come to the place that we realize that Jesus is the example of the most perfect and pure love that has ever walked upon this planet, and there have been more after him, there have been more, but those who have gone after him, we don't hear about those too much, because you don't need to be seen. You don't need to be idolized. You don't need to be on the stage like Taylor Swift, because that's not the role that they're playing. Because unconditional love is very humble. Unconditional love is the millionaire who has made so much money and they don't need so much stuff, so they share it. They use their resources to help others. It's the nurse who found the love of God inside of him or her, and they take care of those patients with such reverence. They're not just a number. They're not just a promotion away from more money. They are a brother or a sister that they are caring for. It's the teacher who has awakened and realizes that the children are the teachers, because a teacher recognizes that they are the ones, the children are the bringers of love and light. They are allowing each child to express themselves instead of condition them into forgetting who they are. It's the policeman, policewoman who has woken up and realizes my passion for being in this role is to make sure that everybody feels safe, that everybody feels protected, and that they can walk the streets in total, complete assurance that their child is going to walk home from school okay. The ones who are waking up and understand what love is, they are giving their love away without conditions. What a perfect day, Valentine's Day, for us to have that conversation. I love the perfection of how everything always unfolds when I work with A Course in Miracles. Because as this last sentence states, and then will come the knowledge that they are one. You have to understand that the knowledge that we are one comes after you remember where God is in you, which comes after you have learned from Jesus what real love is. So we learn from Jesus, the example of unconditional love, gave his life, that talk about unconditional love. You can take my body because I'm not a body. I'm eternal. And I'm still going to love you. I forgive you. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know that you are attempting to kill a body that's not real, but my love for you is not going to change. So we learn from Jesus. Then it activates a Christ consciousness that reminds you that God and you are one. Then you can feel your oneness with all beings because you realize that all are made of the same energy, housed in different bodies for different expressions, just to give us variety for the fun of it. That's it. Can you enjoy being entertained by all these fun, different shapes of people and ideas and expressions? Then that's the fifth dimension. How a whole bunch of different people are going to do a world together, co-created with fun, with joy. Nobody needs to cheat from anybody. Nobody's going to lie. Nobody's going to need to get more than somebody else. Nobody's going to have to be special over somebody else. Nobody's going to manipulate. Can you imagine? I can, because I feel it. I know that that's my reality. And those are the people that I connect with now, have been for the second half of my journey, because we're co-creating a new world, a new earth. But you cannot have that while you hold on to this. You cannot have freedom while you hold on to bondage, while you put people in bondage because of love, while you make people feel guilty because they didn't send you a card, or they didn't call you on Valentine's Day, or they didn't express whatever it is that you need, your ego needs for you to feel special. Then you're not in a fifth dimensional consciousness. You're not operating with Christ consciousness. These are the opportunities for us to be honest. Are we still in the third dimension? What's the work that needs to be done? If you want to be in the fifth, you've got to let go of everything that is third dimensional. You've got to let go of anything outside of you, making you happy, making you safe, making you feel free, making you feel good. That has to be let go of, because that is what keeps you from the fifth dimension, which is the awareness of the truth that we're all one. What a beautiful, thank you for being with me today on this wonderful day. And if anybody has anything that you want to share, if you felt you got a nugget, if this was touched you in any way, shape, or form, unmute yourself and share that. And if not, we will, that's all good. Nobody has to, there's no condition. You don't have to share to be part of this experience. Your presence is just a beautiful gift, whether you were here at the beginning or you showed up later like you, Miss Ginger. I know you'll hear this. I'll post it soon. I love you all so much. Thank you so, so much. And I will talk to you all later. Lots of love. And you can find these episodes on my YouTube channel. Bye-bye.